Let's talk about Berks County. I was doing this and then asking my peers, what do you think about Greater Reading? And I got to tell you, we came up with a list. I mean, when you look at that, these are real and they're impressive locational advantages for new and expanding businesses. And I'll just read a few off. I mean, one of the great advantages is natural. It's the strategic mid-Atlantic location. I mean, you can get to, and the ability to tap two metro areas with global business resources from travel and services and so forth, Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, is absolutely, it's unique. It really makes this, when you think about the ability to be near two global resource centers at a cost point that is very attractive for companies, this is a major advantage. So, you've got a third of the U.S. population within next day delivery by truck. It's over 60% of the U.S. population, second day delivery, and Philly and New York are within stone's throw. So very, very important. Then you take on top of that, all right, how do you get out to these markets or get back and forth? The transportation resources are really terrific. Yeah, very good highway access, quite frankly. Good air access. Again, you got two small regional airports if you want to, that are nice to fly in and out of, Harrisburg and Allentown. Get into Philadelphia with global air service, pretty reasonable. And I got to tell you, Newark in New York are not that far away. I mean, if you're on the north side of Atlanta, getting to the Atlanta airport takes you about as long as it would be from here to get to Newark. So it's a tremendous asset, the accessibility of the region. You got a nice general aviation airport here, multiple competitive motor carrier service with favorable cost, and I know there's not a lot of rail serve sites, but you do have rail service here. On balance, when you look at, nothing's totally favorable in demographics, never is, but on balance, it's, I think it's a good story. Metro population about 415,000. That is large enough to have a critical mass of resources for most businesses. It's small enough for many businesses, including small businesses, to have a voice in what's going on and to get their needs served. So it's a nice sweet spot. Population growth has been modest. It's been very minimal. But in the age cohort of prime working age, 21 to 34, you got a growth rate higher than the U.S. average. This is very good for future labor supply. And there's much more diversity than you would expect from a mid-sized city in Pennsylvania or any place, quite frankly. And more and more companies today are looking for a diverse workforce. Very important. When you look at the talent pool, we get very metric-driven. We're looking for new sites. In the beginning, you say, hey, if we need 25 CNC machine operators, we better be in an area that has a minimum of 250 because that's a 10-to-1 ratio. So when you look at the talent pool breadth and depth from the skills base, you got 37,000 industrial workers, 3,500 engineers. This is pretty impressive. I just did a back at a napkin look at underemployment for industrial and office, and I come up with about 25% of the workforce is underemployed, working in occupations that are lower paying and would feed a company moving into the area because you're not just hiring unemployed. Usually you're hiring underemployed or recent graduates from high school and or college. I was surprised, too, is that the headquarters presence here you got a significant headquarters presence, including a lot of middle market companies that contribute a lot to the community when you're a headquarters. And obviously one of that is talent and contributions to quality of life. And critical for talent attraction. So it's kind of like unique. You don't see that in a lot of areas of this size. The workforce tends to be of high quality. When you look at the education cohort that's most important for branch manufacturing, back offices, distribution, 12 to 15 years education, you're well above the national average on that. Companies that want to remain non-union, and that's 98% of companies that are doing site searches say we got to remain non-union. It's not about an issue of cost; it's about an issue of flexibility in how you run your business. Well, when you look at the unionization rate, it's relatively low, lower than the U.S., and you look at the election results, and it's pretty favorable. I mean, ideally, would you like to be a right-to-work state or a right-to-work county? Of course you would. That would generate a lot more prospectivity, but nevertheless, that's still pretty favorable. When we look at payroll costs, the cost of human capital, obviously, big savings versus Philadelphia and or New York, and lower than the national average for most occupations. So again, you got a high quality workforce, pretty good supply, so it's a value proposition, which is really critical. You know, you are developing these sites, which is really important, so having an ample inventory of sites is critical. I see that as an advantage as you're coming out into 2017. Utility infrastructure is very good. You got good, reliable electric power, a lot of water, natural gas availability. You know, again, another unique attribute. When I looked at the universities in Berks County, it's amazing. Colleges and universities, you got a lot of them here, much more than you would normally expect in an area of 400,000 people. So that's a big deal, and they all work with business, including your community college. A lot of these great assets that Greater Reading has are just not appreciated in the market. I wouldn't say that the image is negative; it's just not there. So you don't get on the radar screen often, as often as you should be, because of that, being overlooked and not having a cohesive brand and marketing theme and so forth. So that's important. Incentives. Incentives are relatively meager. And it's more difficult to close deals here in Reading than it would be in a lot of competitive states, those that are your neighbors and other states that you compete with as well. And then when you look at the business climate rankings, Pennsylvania just doesn't score well. Again, it makes it a tougher sell. I mean, CEO Magazine ranks Pennsylvania number 36, Forbes number 32. So, that makes it a hard sell. So, anyway, what can be done about this? All right. These are just some suggestions for competitive improvement. Hopefully, some of these suggestions you can take away as you keep on fine-tuning your economic development strategies, which ultimately are geared to create more and better quality jobs. To me, number one, even though you got to have the shell buildings, if you pin me down, number one, you got to have this human capital protected, and you got to make sure that this is a good labor market. This is really critical. So to really accelerate workforce development, because you already have a pretty good program. Number one is promoting the socioeconomic value of technical careers. I don't know how closely you all work with Pennsylvania Dream and Do It. They're in the Lehigh Valley, and it's called the Manufacturers Resource Center. But one of their tenets is to throughout the entire stakeholder food chain to promote the value of technical careers, and they do a lot of other things as well. So getting that throughput is going to be really important to the great programs that you have. I think Berks should become a work-ready certified county, and that's essentially through the ACT program and work keys. I'm not going to get into a long dissertation on this, but they look at job families, which is really good because you want to be able to sell. Again, this is metric driven. You need job families, not just CNC machine operators, but all those skills that go into that to say we got this kind of a bucket here in our commute shed. And then, of course, having the certificate, I think it's called National Workforce Ready Certificate, means that you're going to have qualified. And you see that a company knows I got quality people that I can recruit from here as well. I think there needs to be doubling down on apprenticeship programs and assistance for companies getting them to apprenticeship programs. When you look at workforce development, some of the best programs in the country, they're sectoral. They look at your key industries that you have here, such as energy storage, metalworking, medical equipment, food processing, and you develop workforce plans that are based on defined needs, quantifiable needs with quantifiable results. So sectoral driven, metric driven as well. And I would consider something unique. Consider tuition assistance for students that are getting associate degrees in STEM related fields, and also assistance such as Virginia just started to do for students that are trying to get certificates in STEM-related fields. It would be unique. That would be a great program to have. And then I think there needs to be, maybe you have this, I didn't see it, that there needs to be a regional clearinghouse and coordinating body for all these disparate workforce programs, be it literacy, whatever it is, coordinating body to make sure there's efficiency and outreach to businesses. Number two, I think it would be important, again, this is on the HR side. I know you've done some of this, but to really have a world-class campaign, very creative, cool campaign for talent attraction to the region. You start out by reaching out to alumni of area colleges and universities, many of whom are now going to be of family age and want to be able to come back to the area. Many would like to maybe start businesses here. You've got a lot of resources for first and second stage companies, particularly if they happen to be in expensive metropolitan areas like New York or Philadelphia. So that could be good. This would be very heavily reliant on digital marketing. And I've got some in my presentation, some best examples. One of the ones that comes to mind is in Peoria, Illinois. It's called Live GP, and it's been very successful. And again, it's all about talent attraction to be able to buttress the supply of skill sets, professional and hourly, in a community. Columbus, Ohio's got a great program, so does Des Moines, Grand Rapids. So they're out there, and I think that's something you definitely want to consider beefing up. I think it would be important to develop a sticky, exciting brand. What do you want to say to the marketplace in 10 words or less? And then have sub-sales themes off of that brand based upon your target industries would be important. You got to have a shell building program. I mean, there's no way around it. You must have a shell building program to have the success. Pam's talking about success. That success will get accelerated if you got a shell building program. My best guess would be you look at industrial shell manufacturing buildings of about 75,000 square feet and expandable, and office and about 50,000 square feet and expandable. If you can get dual utility service, that would be a home run for these as well. And boy, keep on adding to your efforts to increase the industrial site inventory. Very, very important to have physical product to show. I know there's going to be roundabouts, but, if you can ever get 4-lane all the way on 222, that would be a tremendous advantage. And I really think that, again, because the state offers so little in incentives, I think you've got to have a deal closing fund here in Berks County to be able to, it can be a forgivable loan, could be a partial grant, performance-based, but Berks County needs a deal closing fund. All right. I think you're out of space in incubators and accelerators, co-work, all this stuff. I would take a look at that inventory, bring more to market, because again, one supplemental advantage is the more entrepreneurship is there, the more the word gets out, the easier it is to sell the community, quite frankly, for business and for people as well. Continue this revitalization of downtown Reading. I didn't see a lot of residential. That's probably the next step. I didn't see a supermarket. That's the next step, to get downtown Reading as close as 24/7 as possible. For the life of me, I cannot understand why more than only a few states don't have refundable manufacturing investment tax credits. If we know that the big reason that we're successful globally is the investment in technology, even if it doesn't create a huge number of jobs, we need to incent our manufacturers to do this. And so to have a investment tax credit that isn't refundable, because a lot of companies can't use the credit, to me is doesn't make it escapes the logic escapes me. So Pennsylvania having a program like that would be terrific. And then I remember way back when I was here, that we're talking about putting together some kind of a payroll tax rebate, and I'm really confused. I don't know if it's out there now or not, but you would need to scrap what it was anyway. It was too complicated. So having at the state level a payroll tax rebate would be really key. Why? Because labor is such a big dimension. You get quality people, you get enhanced on certain projects to be able to have part of that rebate. That's cash-oriented, it's performance-based. You don't get it unless you create the jobs at the stated wage level. Would be terrific. You got to really, you got to knock on the governor's door, man. Tell him, hey, look, we need better incentives, and we need the state to step up to the market, to the table, and really engage in global marketing at a very serious level. That is going to be important to be able to help all communities in Pennsylvania. And I firmly believe that seeing as how you don't have the utilities or the state behind you in significant marketing, I got to tell you, your marketing budget, now this would include payroll, but you got to be careful on that because, in a small organization, you do more than one job. But the marketing budget for GREP needs to be, in my opinion, 2 times per capita population. So, you need about, I know this is a mouthful, but I think it's $800,000 a year in marketing. I really do. To get to where you want to go, and particularly the target industries, and what you're competing out against there nationally. So, all right. You know, I just sat back and said, hey, man, what are some industries? And you already know about these industries, but I come up with 8 of them, man. I mean, this is pretty good. You can't have 8 target industries because it's too expensive and too time consuming. But, I mean, when I look at energy storage here and the metalworking sector, huge. I didn't see as much packaging, which surprises me. I think packaging would be a very good target industry. Plastics, medical devices, food processing, a whole range of professional services from customer solutions, claims processing, financial transaction processing, inside sales, shared service centers, small-scale IT centers would be great. And then, of course, in distribution, as the sites keep on opening up. But the trick there is that how much land do you want to be able to devote to distribution, which does have a certain wage limitation on the offerings that they can offer. So that's something that has to be decided by you all going down the road. Now, I got to tell you, since I was here, certainly since 2004, but last time I was here in 2011, there's really been some major changes, and almost all of it pretty good. I have to tell you that when I look at the success, the focus of GREP, its funding levels, and its outcomes, I mean, it's been pretty impressive. You've got a nice track record of new and expanded businesses over the last several years. I think GREP, assuming business retention and expansion, is a big deal. Because now you got all that coordinated in one entity, which is really, to me, very important. I really like this creation, I think, of your new organization, a merger of 3 entities. It should leverage resources. You'll have a more unified vision, better, more stable source of funding. It should be great for talent attraction. But I would urge you to keep the name Reading. I know I heard maybe you can change it to Berks County. Do not do that. Nationally, it's 3,100 counties. Nobody would, be lucky if we know about Reading. At least we know about the railroad and so forth. So place name recognition is important in national marketing. Boy, this entrepreneur base, I'm just blown away by the level of entrepreneurship in Berks County. It's tremendous. That's really a great thing. I don't know who's been the steward of this, but this has been tremendous. The downtown looks a lot better, including that corridor out to West Reading. It's fantastic. It needs to keep on going. And you really are bringing more product to market. Last time I was here, there were very, very few industrial sites. Now there are many more, and you're growing that as well. In the distribution industry, you didn't have much at all. Now, PetSmart, Dollar General, and so forth is terrific. You've done a really good job on workforce development, in my opinion. The careers in 2 years, I think you all started that. That's a really good program. There's finally beginning to be some improvements on Route 22. The franchise tax was eliminated. I still see a paucity of available buildings, unfortunately, and since it's still challenged in terms of funding, both incentives and funding at the state level, that hasn't really changed. In summary, these changes have been overwhelmingly positive. It is certainly reflected in the kinds of companies you've been able to attract and get to expand in the area. And you got the momentum, so keep it going, and hopefully my remarks this morning will help you a little bit in terms of increasing that momentum and your success rate.